From now, with each steps of this project, I will ask you to look for a solution on internet. For those who don't need help at all, you can start coding right away without my help. The only thing I'm asking you is to create an interface called iSymptomReader. With this interface, you will read the txt file. To populate a collection. For those who want a bit of help, who think they need some help, I'm going to show you some tips. So those who want to code alone, hit the pause button, and for the people who need a bit of help, I'm going to show you some tips. You should look for the buffered reader and file reader classes on internet. Those two files are really used often to read a txt file. So try to find on Stack Overflow, on YouTube, you will find plenty of source code of people that are reading some txt file. The goal of this project is to understand the source code of another developer and use it for your project. I know this is not easy, but it is part of the job. Understanding a source code of another developer, and adapt it to your own project. So if you want only those two tips, you can hit the pause button and wait for a solution. For those who want immediately the solution because you have no clue on how to solve this problem, I will ask you to perfectly understand each line of my solutions, of my code, because getting a solution without understanding it is not the way to go, because you will not learn anything. So make sure you perfectly understand what I'm going to tell you about the solution, all right? So let's jump into it. First, I show you my three classes, my interface and my two classes. So I did an interface called iSymptomReader. I'm doing a method signature, as you know, and an abstract method, obviously, called getSymptoms, with no parameters, and this method will return us a list of strings. I'm doing also a class called ComputeData that implements iSymptomReader. Make sure you are importing those two imports because we will use it in the solution. I have only one attribute called FilePath. It is private, of course, and it is a string. The purpose of this attribute is to store the name of the txt file we are going to read. In this case, it will be symptoms. I'm doing a constructor, and at the same time, I'm doing an instance, I will do an instance of an object of type ComputeData that implements iSymptomReader. I will set my FilePath attribute. This way, I will know where is my txt file in fact, what its name. Also, I have to override my interface, right? Because, as you know now, I implemented my iSymptom reader interface, so I got to give a body to my getSymptoms method with the override annotation. So let's jump into it. When I will call getSymptoms, I'm doing an instance of an object of type ArrayList of string. I'm calling it result. And I'm initializing it, of course, with new ArrayList of string. If I'm starting an if my file path is not equal to null, this means I have, when I will do my instance of my object of type compute data with the constructor, obviously I will have inside file path the name of my txt. So if I have it, this expression will return, this condition will return true. File path not equal to null will be true because file path will hold the name of the txt. When you are going to instantiate object with buffered reader, writer immediately, maybe you noticed it, the compiler IntelliJ will tell you that you got to write those codes inside a try-catch block. Try-catch means I want to try to do this, and if something goes wrong, it will, what we will call, raise an exception, and we will catch it and prevent the program to crash. Why IntelliJ is telling this? Because when you are trying to access a file on Windows, on an operating system, on Linux, on macOS, you are not sure that this file is not accessed already by something else or someone else. Or you're not sure you're going to find it. Imagine symptoms.txt, for whatever reason, is not here anymore when I'm trying to access it. I'm going to raise an exception and to have an exception, and the exception will go on the top of my program and make it crash. So IntelliJ is wisely telling you, do a try-catch block to prevent this problem. Okay, so keep in mind, I will try to do it, to do what's inside this pair of curly braces, and if I have an exception, I will catch it and I will prevent my program to crash, right? Inside this try-catch block, I'm doing an instance of an object of type buffered reader, and I called it reader. By the way, make sure you well wrote the import, right? If you didn't do this, you will have some red lines. Look. See, ArrayList, buffered reader. So you should be usually good to go just doing this import, but in some case it can be tricky because some collections have the same name. So in this case, look, when I'm trying to import ArrayList, my bad, you found it immediately, but sometimes you will have a collection that have the same name and they are not from the same package too. So make sure you're always importing the right collection you want to import or the right class. Anyway, I'm going to do an instance of an object of type buffered reader. I'm calling the constructor of buffered reader, and inside the constructor of buffered reader we have a parameter that is an instance of an object of type file reader. And I'm calling a constructor of the file reader and I have a parameter which is the name of the file I want to access. In other words, after this instantiation of object, line 20, I will be able to read inside my txt, inside symptoms.txt. Because file path, as you remember, when compute data will be instantiated, will hold the name of the txt. By the way, I believe you got to be sure that your txt is at the root of your project, all right? I'm using the readLine method that is inside BufferedReader class, and they say read the line of text. A line is considered to be terminated by any one of the line feed, a carriage return followed immediately by a line feed, or by reaching the end of file. So in other words, I'm going to read the first symptom that's inside my txt file. In this case, it will be tremor. And after that, the readLine method will return us the first string and will lead us to the second line, ready to read the next line. So this expression will return the first symptom. I'm using it to initialize a variable of type string called line. Okay? So I have my first symptom on my line variable, and I'm jumping to a while statement, while line not equal to null. This means if I'm having a symptoms, I will do what's inside my while. If I don't have a symptoms inside my line, so it will be null, because when my readLine will hit the end of my symptoms.txt file, I will have null inside line. It will return a null. In this case, the while is true. Line not equal to null, this is true. This condition is true, so I'm jumping inside my block of code. I'm simply using the add method of my array list. Result is an array list of string, as you remember. All I have to do is to just write my variable line that holds my string, my first symptom. In this case, tremor. Right away, after doing this, I'm reading the next line, so the next symptom, dry mouth, and I'm populating again my string line with a new symptom. In this case, the while will be also true one more time, and I will add my new symptom inside my array list. So you understand now I'm populating, I'm filling my array list with all the symptoms I'm slowly reading inside my txt. Okay? And you have to understand the moment where we are going to go from a txt file to the objects world is here. I'm reading my txt file and I'm populating an object of type string called line. This is at line 21, I'm starting to convert, I would say, my string on a txt file to a value inside an object. Anyway, when I'm breaking my while, because my while is ended, I will hit the end of the txt file. So I will hit the last line. So my readLine method will return null, and I will break out of the while. I will close my access to this file because, as I told you, we don't want to have someone or somebody keeping an access to a file, because when somebody or someone is opening a file, nobody can access it anyway, at least in Windows. So we want, the good behavior is to close the access to the txt file when you're done with it. All right? And we will return our array list completely filled with all the symptoms. So that's pretty much it. Make sure you understood everything I told you. I'm going to summarize fast one more time what we did. We did an array list of string. We used the file path attribute to know where is our txt file. Inside a try catch, we are instantiate an object of type buffered reader that will let us access to the file path, to the symptoms txt, sorry. We are starting to read the lines inside the file, and with the while we are slowly looping through this txt file. We can do one more thing. I have to show you indeed what we will do in our main method. We will obviously instantiate an object of type compute data. We will call it compute data, and we will call the constructor. Okay? With the attribute, the first attribute of the constructor, we are waiting here to know where is the file path, where is the symptoms.txt. Also, we are going to use our first method we just override here, getSymptoms. I will do array list of string unsorted symptoms, but because, as you know, after this process, my symptoms will not be sorted still. They will be in the same order as in the txt file for now. So I'm using my variable of type compute data called compute data, and I will access my method getSymptoms we just did together here to read what's inside the txt. Okay, so one more time. I'm doing an instance of an object of type compute data, new compute data. I'm calling the constructor with the path to the txt file to set my file path attribute, and I'm using simply the getSymptoms method, to get all the symptoms stored inside an array list of string, because as you remember, getSymptoms will return an array list of string. I hope this is clear, and I will catch you in the next lecture.